Okay, part 3, July, or no, it's June 4th. June 4th. Um, so I'm just describing the method I used for building these beds. It's kind of like a single dig method. Yeah, so I just cut the grass out, flipped it on its back, and I seeded right on top of that. For most of the rows here, that's all I did, and I planted right on top of it. But also, later on, I got a hold of some compost. Actually, right across, there's a street right there beyond where you can see in that clearing. Right across the street is the city department, and they have a composting program. You know, where they pick up those brown paper bags with people's outdoor refuse, and I don't know how they process it, but they have a big pile of it. They give it to you for $1 a yard or $10 a yard, and so I mean, it's the price is right there, and we just take the trailer over there and get a load of it at a time. I think so far I've gotten 5 loads. I think I want 1 more for this season, and so you can see the difference between those 3 beds there and then the rest of them. You can see it's mounded right there. So once I got a hold of some compost, I would do the single dig method and then put the compost on top of that. I think the compost is definitely richer, but it's interesting to see that some things seem to actually just prefer non-composted beds, whereas other things definitely, I'd say most things prefer the non-compost. And they prefer the compost. And here's a comparison just using arugula, which I don't think is a great example, but here's arugula planted at the same time as this arugula. So clearly the arugula likes some nice compost. And this stuff is really pretty good. You can see just how dark that is. The soil down here is not as good. This is really not as good, but further up there it's pretty solid on its own before I added the compost. And that's why I kind of stopped right here, because it really gets, I think at some point somebody must have taken the topsoil off of this area. There's some holes right here. I think there's like a drainage pipe that comes through right here. So this has been manipulated a lot. It's not very solid for gardening. But yeah, and then what I do to weed, because I don't even putting driving a weed whacker through here is not like, these beds are a little bit too close for that, which is fine. I mean, organic gardening, you just have to plan on, you know, hand weeding anyways. That's just the way it is. So I expected that. So what I do is I just come in and boom, just pick off the top. I'm not trying to pick, I want to keep this grass, and I'm not trying to kill the grass. So I just come through along the edges and everything, and by hand I pick it all up. And the chickens, by the way, they love the clover. They prefer, I think, to harvest it themselves, but I've been taking, just when I pick that, I go throw it in their pen. So let me show you what I've got planted. Yeah, so I mostly tried to companion plant, so most of these beds will have 2 different things going at the same time. So these are arugula mixed with some tomatoes. And the problem with the tomatoes, peppers, a couple other things is that big tree right there is a walnut tree, and that one's also a walnut tree. And I didn't know this until I started even planting some tomatoes and stuff up there, which you'll see. And I don't know how those are going to do. From what I understand, it's the juglone substance that the tree produces in its roots, and I think it's throughout, even into the leaves. The leaf droppings will have some of this stuff. And the closer you get to the tree, the more intense it is.